I stared at the message, blinking. My hand trembled, and the phone slipped from my fingers, landing face down on the kitchen tile. The words burned themselves into my brain like they were carved with fire. You won't be joining us as my husband prefers to keep it only his family. That was it. That was the text. No, thank you for paying, Mom. No, we love you. Not even a punctuation mark to cushion the slap. And I had just paid $12,847.26 for that trip. Flights, resort, car rental, dinner reservations, amusement park tickets. Every cent came from my savings. My retirement savings. The money I told myself I'd spend making memories with the only family I had left. It was supposed to be a family trip. A celebration. A way to reconnect after everything life had taken from me. But they had other plans. Plans that didn't include me. And just like that, they canceled me from my own gift. I'm sorry. Where are my manners? My name is Joanne Betty Hill. I'm 85 years old. A retired pediatric nurse from Rochester, New York, with sunspots on my hands, arthritis in my hips, and a hole in my heart shaped like a daughter I raised with everything I had. I don't have many friends these days. Most are gone or gone in mind. My days are quiet. Too quiet sometimes, but I never minded because I had them. My daughter Rachel, her husband Brett, and their 2 girls, Emma and Sadie. They were my joy, my breath, my whole reason for waking up every morning. Till now. Until that message. I picked up my phone again, hoping, praying I had read it wrong. That my eyes had played a trick on me. But no. It was still there. You won't be joining us. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not just sadness. No, it was betrayal. That sharp kind that stabs slowly. The kind you don't scream about. The kind you quietly plot against. I stood in my kitchen, barefoot, my lemon pie cooling on the window, and realized I had just funded a vacation I was not invited to. And they thought I'd just sit back. Not a chance. They forgot I may be old, but I'm still me. Still sharp. Still got a few tricks tucked under this white cardigan. You see, what they didn't know was that I hadn't just paid for the trip. I had booked everything in my name. The flights, the resort, passes, even the rental van that was set to pick them up in the morning. All under my control. And now, I was going to freeze that trip stone cold. But first, let me tell you how we even got to this point. How the trip came to be. How a daughter I gave the world to turned into a stranger holding the knife. It started 6 months ago. I was sipping tea on my porch when Rachel called. She sounded excited. Mom, she said, we were thinking of doing a summer vacation. The kids haven't seen the ocean in years. Oh honey, that's wonderful, I replied, already smiling. Where are you thinking? Florida, she beamed. Maybe Universal Studios. The girls would love it. But we're tight on money right now. Brett's job cut his hours. I hate asking, but she trailed off. I could already hear the hesitation in her voice, and that made me love her even more. Say no more, I said. Let Grandma handle it. My savings are just sitting there. Let's make memories. Rachel cried. We planned every detail together. I spent hours researching kid-friendly hotels, finding coupons, and even calling the resort to confirm they had gluten-free options for Sadie's allergies. I was so excited I bought a new sun hat for myself online. You'll love the beach, she had told me. We'll get matching swimsuits. But slowly, something shifted. Started with silence. Delays in text. Missed calls. Then came the subtle excuses. Oh, Brett wants just us 4 for dinner tonight. Oh, Brett says you shouldn't tire yourself with the amusement park lines. Then finally that text. From Rachel, my daughter. After I had footed the entire bill. And just like that, I wasn't family anymore. I took a deep breath. My heart raced, but not from age. From anger. Quiet, focused anger. The kind only a wronged grandmother could brew. So I did what no one expected from an old lady in orthopedic slippers. I logged into the airline account and hit Cancel Reservation. Then I opened the resort portal and clicked Manage Booking. Finally, I called the car rental company and spoke in my nicest old lady voice. "Hi, sweetheart, I need to cancel my family's van reservation. There's been a change of plans." Blick, blick, blick. With every cancellation I felt lighter. But it wasn't enough. Because Rachel and Brett still didn't know yet. And tomorrow morning, when they show up to the airport at 5 a.m. with 2 sleepy kids in tow, only to be told no reservation found under this name, well, let's just say, Grandma's revenge vacation was about to begin. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, no. I slept with my conscience clean. I stayed awake out of principle. Because while Rachel and Brett were probably packing their designer luggage and filling up water bottles for their 5 a.m. flight, I was watching reruns of Columbo and sipping chamomile tea with a wicked little smile on my lips. At exactly 5:12 a.m. my phone buzzed. "Rachel, Mom. They're saying our flights don't exist. Can you check the confirmation again?" Another message followed 30 seconds later. "Rachel. The airline says there's no reservation under any of our names. What's going on?" I didn't reply. I just sat in my robe and turned the volume up. Columbo was solving a double cross. Fitting. At 5:27 a.m. my home phone rang. That old beige landline I keep in the kitchen for emergencies. I let it ring once. 3 times. Then I picked up slowly. "Hello. Mom. Thank God. What's happening?" "We're at the airport, and they say the flights were cancelled." I smiled softly, though I knew she couldn't see it. "Cancelled?" I said, feigning surprise. "Oh dear. That's odd. I suppose that must be because you told me I wasn't invited anymore." There was a pause on the other end. Heavy one. Thick with shame. Or at least confusion. "Mom, look, that text, what I meant was..." "Don't play dumb, Rachel," I said, firmer now. "You told me I wasn't family. After I paid for the trip. You think I'd still just hand it over like I'm your wallet on legs?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. I could hear the girls whining in the background. "Please," she said. "We're already at the gate. Brett is furious." "Well then," I said. "He finally knows how I feel." And I hung up. Let's rewind. Let me take you back to why I even offered to pay for this vacation. Why it hurt so much when they tossed me aside. 3 years ago, after my husband George passed from cancer, I lost more than a spouse. I lost my best friend. My stability. My daily purpose. Rachel was all I had left. I thought we'd grow closer in grief, lean on each other. For a while we did. But then Brett came along. He always had a way of excluding me, subtly. At holidays, I noticed how he'd plan events without consulting me. He once booked a Mother's Day brunch and forgot to include me. On Christmas, I got a re-gifted sweater with the tag still on. He never said anything outright, but it was always clear. I was an inconvenience to him. And my daughter, sweet Rachel. She used to stand up for me. Until she didn't. Until she got tired of rocking the boat. Back at the airport, I imagined the chaos was unfolding. Brett, fuming with his arms crossed. Rachel pacing, trying to call me again. The girls, my granddaughters, confused and sleepy, not understanding why their vacation was falling apart. They would never forget that morning. And neither would I. Because at 6:10 a.m. Rachel sent me this. "Rachel, Mom, you made your point. Please. The girls are crying. Don't punish them." That part. That broke my heart. Not for Rachel. For the girls. They didn't deserve to be in the middle. But I didn't reply. Not yet. It was about respect. About being included. About being family. And if I hadn't drawn the line here, at this betrayal, where would it end? At 7:15 a.m., the house phone rang again. This time it was Brett. I almost let it go to voicemail. But I didn't. "Hello. Joanne," he said. "Let's not make this a thing." Thing. That's what he called it. "You tried to erase me," I said coldly. "From a vacation I funded. And now you're upset because I exercised the power you forgot I had." There was silence. Then a sigh. "Look," he said. "The girls were excited. Maybe next time." There won't be a next time, I cut in. I heard him chuckle under his breath. Dismissively. You think canceling a trip makes you the hero? You're just being petty. You're old and lonely, and you want to make everyone else miserable too. Pause. And then I said it. No, Brett. I'm not miserable. Because for the first time in years. Finally said no. And it feels like spring after a decade of winter. Then I hung up again. I spent the rest of the morning baking. The house smelled like cinnamon and butter. And by 9 a.m. I was at peace. Until the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. So when I opened the door and saw Rachel, eyes red, holding Emma's teddy bear, I nearly stepped back. Mom, she whispered. Can we talk? I let her in. But I didn't say a word. Because now it was her turn to explain. Rachel stepped inside my little cottage like she didn't recognize it anymore. Her eyes darted around the room like it was the first time she noticed the family pictures on the walls, the quilted armchair I used to rock her to sleep in, the porcelain teacups I only brought out for special guests. She held Emma's teddy bear tight to her chest. That bear used to live here. Emma would forget it during weekend visits, and I'd tuck it beside her old blanket until she came back. Now it looked like a guilt offering. I didn't offer her tea. I didn't invite her to sit. Waited. Because when someone betrays you so casually, they have to be the one to speak first. Mom, she began, her voice shaking. I don't even know where to start. I raised an eyebrow. Start with the truth. She lowered her eyes. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I stayed silent. She finally sat down, setting the teddy bear gently on the edge of the couch. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her blouse the way she used to when she was a teenager trying to hide bad grades. I didn't mean for you to feel excluded, she said. It was just Brett's idea. He thought it'd be easier to keep it his family. I finished the sentence for her. That's what your message said. Because this wasn't just about a trip. Rachel flinched. Her eyes welled up. I shouldn't have texted that, she whispered. It was cruel. I was just caught between him and you. No, I said. You chose him over me. Over the woman who raised you, held you through fevers, stayed up nights with you when your father was on the road working. I gave you everything, Rachel. I know, she said quickly. I know, Mom. You did. And I hate how this all turned out. The girls cried the entire ride home. Emma asked me why Grandma didn't come to the beach. I didn't have an answer. She sniffled. I know I messed up. I wanted to believe her. But I needed more. Because one apology doesn't fix years of slow rejection. You know, I said slowly, this didn't start with the vacation. It started years ago. She looked confused. I continued. The year you stopped inviting me to Easter brunch. The Christmas you said the house was too full for me to stay overnight. The time I made Sadie a birthday cake and Brett told me store-bought was fine. Rachel looked like she'd been slapped. I didn't know it hurt you that much. You didn't care enough to ask, I said gently but firmly. That's the difference. She nodded slowly. Then she said something I didn't expect. Brett doesn't like that you're independent. Blinked. What? He says it all the time. That you act like you're the third parent. That you're too involved. That you don't know your place. My jaw tightened. Is that what you think too? Yes. She didn't answer. And that silence, that was my answer. That night after she left, I didn't cry. I sat on my porch with my tea and looked out at the stars. Thought about the years I spent sacrificing for that girl. The nights I worked double shifts just to buy her ballet shoes. The time I canceled my anniversary weekend just to drive her 3 hours to a science camp. But more than that, I thought about how easily she had let me go. Not just on a vacation, but in life. And for what? A man who made her feel smaller. A husband who saw me as competition. The next morning I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello. Joanne Hill, the voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is Melanie from Sunrise Pines Family Travel Insurance. I'm calling to verify the freeze you placed on your family travel protection plan. Froze. I'm sorry, what freeze? The woman hesitated. Well, our system shows a request came in from your daughter's number yesterday evening. She said you had authorized her to claim reimbursement for the cancelled trip and freeze the funds for rescheduling later. Is that correct? My blood ran cold. No, I said. Absolutely not. I grabbed a pen and wrote everything down. Melanie was polite. Too polite. But she confirmed that Rachel had called pretending to be me, trying to claim my refund for a trip she kicked me out of. So that's what it was. Tears. The teddy bear. The late-night visit. It wasn't just guilt. It was a setup. She had come to butter me up, because she wanted the money back. And I nearly believed her. I nearly forgave her. But now I was awake. I called my bank, filed a report with a travel agency, and locked down every dollar. Then I printed a letter. One I had drafted long ago but never had the courage to send. My will. Changed everything. Removed Rachel as the executor. Removed her from property rights. Removed her from the accounts I had left for future family travel. I wasn't being vindictive. I was being clear. Because love without respect isn't love. It's a lie wrapped in pretty words and forced holidays. And I had no more room for lies. Clara assured me she'd get the charges reversed and file a fraud report. But I was emotionally bankrupt. And Rachel, she was spiraling. I don't know who I am anymore, she confessed that night. I look in the mirror and I see someone who lost everything. A wife who married a manipulator. A daughter who used her own mother. A mother who doesn't know how to fix anything. I reached across the table and held her hand. You start by telling the truth. Every time. No matter how hard. She nodded, squeezing my hand. But the damage was done. Could forgive. But I wouldn't forget. The next day Brett showed up. In my driveway. Pounding on the door. Open up, Joanne. I know she's in there. The girls cried in the back room. Rachel turned pale. And me. I didn't panic. Called 911. Then I opened the window curtain, just slightly, and looked him dead in the eye. Brett Hill, I said through the glass. You step 1 foot on my porch and you're going to jail. He kicked the tire of his car and shouted, You'll regret this. But when the cops arrived 10 minutes later, he was still there. They cuffed him on the spot for trespassing and disturbing the peace. The officer gave me a knowing look. You want to file a restraining order this time, ma'am? I looked at Rachel. She nodded. Yes, I said firmly. Make it permanent. Courtrooms always gave me the shivers. Maybe it was the cold air. Maybe the wood-paneled walls. Maybe the memories of standing there years ago when I fought to get custody of Rachel after her father left. But this time, I wasn't trembling. I was ready. Because this time I wasn't there to beg for scraps. I was there to take everything Brett thought he had power over, and burn it down with the truth. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Rachel sat beside me in the front row of the gallery, wringing her hands. She hadn't said much that morning. Just that she was ready to do the right thing. Brett showed up 5 minutes late, looking smug. Slick back hair. Navy suit. That fake politeness he used with judges and waitresses. He winked at Rachel as he walked in. She turned her head away. The bailiff called the case. Hill versus Hill. God, it sounded so strange to hear it out loud. Clara rose and began with clear, powerful words. Your Honor, we're requesting a permanent restraining order based on Mr. Hill's pattern of harassment, attempted financial fraud, trespassing and coercive control. She laid out the timeline. The fraudulent travel insurance claim. The credit card opened in my name. The forged signatures. The police visit after Brett tried to claim I was mentally unfit. The day he showed up, screaming in my driveway with the girls inside crying. Each point landed like a hammer. Brett smirked through most of it, until Clara pulled out the court documents from his previous lawsuits. That wiped the smile right off his face. I object, Your Honor, Brett's lawyer snapped. Those cases were dismissed. The judge didn't blink. Noted. But still admissible for pattern of behavior. Brett shifted uncomfortably in his chair. First time I saw that man sweat. Then the judge turned to Rachel. Mrs. Hill, would you like to speak? She stood slowly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. My husband made me someone I don't even recognize. I hurt my mother because I was too afraid to speak up. But I see him now clearly. I'm asking you, please. Protect us. He's not going to stop. The courtroom was silent. Then the judge asked her, do you believe he would harm your children? Rachel hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes, not physically, but emotionally. And if he can't manipulate me, he'll use them. That was the moment I knew we were going to win. After a 10-minute recess, the judge returned with the decision. Permanent restraining order granted. Mr. Hill is to stay 300 feet away from Mrs. Hill, Ms. Hill, and their minor children. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Brett stood up and shouted, this is a setup. Bailiffs stepped forward immediately. The judge raised a brow. You want to start contempt charges too, Mr. Hill? He backed down, face red. When we walked out of the courthouse, the sun was shining. For the first time in months, I could feel it on my skin without fear. Rachel squeezed my hand. You saved us, Mom. I smiled softly. No, you saved yourself. I just stood beside you while you remembered who you were. That night we celebrated with frozen pizza and laughter. Sadie fell asleep on the couch with her bear. Emma drew a picture of us holding hands in a garden. Rachel brought out an old photo album from when she was a girl. We looked through the pages, laughing at her bowl cut and my neon pink tracksuit. It wasn't perfect, but it was healing, and that meant everything. But the story wasn't over yet, because a week later I received a certified letter from a real estate attorney. Inside, notice of claim on my house. Apparently, Brett had filed a quitclaim deed months ago, one that listed Rachel as the co-owner. And because she hadn't known, and hadn't refuted it in time, my house was now in legal limbo. Rachel's eyes widened as she read it. I swear to you, I didn't know he did this. But it didn't matter. He'd forged it. He'd submitted it. And unless I fought back in court again, could lose my home. I held the letter in my hands like it was a ticking bomb. Notice of claim on property ownership. 143 Meadow Lane. My house. The one George and I bought in 1965 with 2 jobs, 1 dream, and barely enough money to cover the down payment. The place where I raised Rachel. Where I grew tulips every spring. Where George painted the porch blue just to match my favorite earrings. Where we celebrated Christmas, birthdays, even the sad anniversaries. Now, Brett had filed paperwork claiming it was his. Through Rachel. Through a quitclaim deed I never signed. But the name on it. In shaky letters I didn't recognize. The signature had been forged. The date was backdated. The notary. Fake. And Rachel, when she saw it, fell to her knees. I didn't know, she sobbed. I didn't know he did this. I sat down, cold all over. He wasn't just a manipulator. He was a thief. And I had to stop him one last time. Clara didn't waste a second. We filed a fraudulent deed challenge in property court. Rachel submitted an affidavit swearing she had no knowledge of the claim. The forged notary was tracked and exposed. An online notary listing with no legal license. Brett had used some app to create fake documents. We even brought in a handwriting expert, who confirmed the signature wasn't mine. Still, the court date was set. July 15th. The day I might lose my home. Or win everything back for good. That morning I dressed in my Sunday best. A soft blue blouse, pearl earrings, and my orthopedic shoes that looked almost like pumps if you squinted. I took Rachel's hand as we walked in. Sadie and Emma stayed home with Darlene. I needed them to remember their grandma as strong, not scared. Brett was there, of course. Slicked back, smug again, in a gray suit he probably couldn't afford anymore. But this time the courtroom was not his stage. Because I had the truth. And I had receipts. Clara stood tall and confident. "We are requesting full reversal of the fraudulent deed and reinstatement of sole property ownership to Ms. Joanne Hill. We have evidence of forgery, including forensic handwriting analysis, notary fraud, and intent to defraud under false pretenses." The judge listened carefully. Then he turned to me. "Ms. Hill, would you like to speak?" I stood. My hands didn't shake. "Your Honor," I began, "I am 85 years old. But I am not weak. I have fought cancer. I have buried a husband. I have raised a child. I worked 40 years in pediatric care. And I never signed away my home." Took a breath. "This man used my daughter. Tried to turn her into a weapon. But I forgave her. Because she saw the truth. He's done this before. He'll do it again." I stepped closer. "But not to me. Not today." The courtroom was silent. Even Brett didn't smirk. When the judge returned with the decision, I braced myself. But his words wrapped around me like sunlight. "The court finds in favor of Ms. Joanne Hill. The quitclaim deed is nullified, the forgery documented, and a fraud alert has been filed with the county clerk. Full ownership is restored to Ms. Hill. Mr. Brett Hill is barred from filing any future claims against this property." It was over. Really over. Outside, Rachel broke down crying. Not because we lost, but because we won, and she finally saw the cost of silence. "I let him twist everything," she said. "He even made me believe you were too much. Too involved. But you were the only one who ever loved me without condition." Hugged her. Hard. And then I whispered in her ear. "Now you know. So don't ever let anyone take your voice again." Life didn't return to normal. Created a new normal. Rachel was rebuilding piece by piece. She picked up part-time work at the local library, enrolled Emma in public school, and filed every bit of paperwork to officially cut Brett from their lives. I helped where I could, but I never overstepped. I had learned that even love needs boundaries. One morning, as I folded laundry, I found a letter tucked inside a clean shirt Rachel had returned to me. It was handwritten. Fragile. Full of truth. "Mom, I don't know how to say thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I let a man turn me against the woman who gave me life. You had every right to shut me out. But you didn't. You didn't just fight for your house. You fought for me. I don't know how long it'll take for me to earn that trust again. But I'll try every single day. Love, Rachel." I read it twice. Then I tucked it into my Bible next to the forgery papers. Not as a reminder of the pain, but as proof that healing was possible. But peace, like flowers, needs tending. 2 months after the court case ended, I got a phone call from someone I never expected. Brett's mother. "Yes," she said softly. "It's real. Everything he did to you, he did to me first. I only wish I had spoken up sooner." She told me stories. How Brett used to isolate her. How he moved her to a trailer park and tried to sell her original house. How he gaslit her until she nearly believed she was senile. "He feeds on quiet women," she said. "But you weren't quiet. You exposed him. I'm proud of you." And then she said something that stuck with me. "You didn't just save yourself. You saved the next woman too." That's when I realized something. What happened to me, what Brett tried to do, wasn't rare. It was happening everywhere. Older women, widows, grandmothers, women who were treated like they didn't matter anymore, whose families used their kindness like a bank account, whose silence made them invisible. And that's when I made my final decision. I created something called the Meadow Fund, a small non-profit named after my street, 143 Meadow Lane. It started as a support group in the church basement. 5 chairs, coffee machine, handwritten sign. But within weeks, other women came. One was tricked by her nephew into signing over her car. One was being locked in her room by her daughter-in-law. One hadn't spoken to her only child in 10 years, until a lawyer showed up asking for her signature on a house deed. They cried. They laughed. They healed. We weren't victims anymore. We were fighters. We were still here. And then one day I got a letter in the mail. Not from Brett. Not from Rachel. Not even from a lawyer. But from Sadie. Scrawled in crayon, folded in a blue envelope. Dear Grandma, thank you for saving Mommy. And for saving our house. You are my favorite superhero. Love. Sadie Bareface. I cried for an hour. Because in the end that's what mattered most. Not the house. Not the court case. Not even the revenge. But what I taught my granddaughters. That no matter your age, no matter how many people try to silence you, you always have the right to speak. Fight. Be seen. Spring came early that year. The tulips bloomed 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and I took that as a sign. Life was moving forward, and so was I. Every Sunday, Rachel and the girls came over for lunch. Not out of obligation, but because they wanted to. Emma helped me fold napkins. Sadie made lemonade with far too much sugar. Rachel sat beside me on the porch swing. No more walls between us. Felt like family again. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, one final test came knocking. It was a Thursday morning. I was sipping tea and reviewing a grant proposal for the Meadow Fund when my phone rang. Block number. I let it go to voicemail. But then the landline rang and kept ringing. When I answered, the voice on the other end chilled my bones. This is Officer Darrell from the County Sheriff's Office. Are you Ms. Joanne Hill? Yes, I said, throat dry. Ma'am, I'm calling to inform you that your former son-in-law, Mr. Brett Hill, was found trespassing on a property in Arizona. During his arrest, he was found in possession of multiple fake IDs, one of which bore your name and photo. What? He's facing new fraud charges. But we wanted to alert you in case you experience any attempts at identity theft or contact from associates of his. I sat down slowly. 'Cause just like that, Brett had found a way to come back. The next few days were a whirlwind. Clara filed emergency fraud alerts on all my financial accounts, again. We had to notify credit bureaus, update legal protections, and secure the Meadow Fund's donor list. But something had changed. I wasn't afraid. I was angry. I was focused. I was tired of hiding. So I called a friend of mine, Nancy, a retired local reporter, and asked her if she still had connections at the paper. She did. And within the week, the Sunday front page read, 85-year-old widow stops serial abuser. Launches fund to protect women like her. My story. Laid bare. No filters. No shame. Just the truth. And the most surprising thing. The letters. Hundreds of them. From all across the country. Women in nursing homes. Daughters estranged from mothers. Sons who regretted letting their mothers down. Even one woman who wrote from prison saying, "You made me realize I wasn't crazy. Just unheard. Thank you." Rachel read every one with me. And one afternoon she looked at me and said, "Mom, you didn't just save us. You started something bigger." So we expanded the Meadow Fund, started an online forum, partnered with lawyers, hosted workshops on protecting yourself from financial abuse, especially in old age. And do you know who came to volunteer? Rachel. Week after week, side by side with me. On my 86th birthday, they threw me a party in the church hall. Balloons, laughter, my favorite lemon pie. I stood in front of a room full of women, most of them survivors, and made a speech I'd written in my head 100 times. They tried to write me out of the story. They tried to take my voice, my house, my family. But I fought back. Not with fists, but with truth. And because of that I stand here, not broken, not bitter, but braver than ever. At the end of the night, Sadie hugged me tight and whispered, "Grandma, I want to be like you when I grow up." I knelt down and kissed her forehead. "Baby girl, you already are." Brett was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for interstate fraud. Rachel officially finalized the divorce. Emma won her first writing contest, an essay titled, "The Strongest Woman I Know." It was about me. And the last line. Some people think grandmas just knit sweaters. But mine stopped a villain. She made us safe. And she taught me what power really looks like. If you're a woman like me, Older, overlooked, underestimated. Don't let anyone silence you. Speak up. Take your space. Guard your heart. And remember, your age does not define your strength. Your voice does. I thought everything would quiet down after Brett went to prison. I had my home. My daughter had come back. The girls were safe. The Meadow Fund was growing faster than I imagined. We were featured in a segment on Good Morning America. People sent donations from every state. A tech company even offered to build us a free website and app. It should have been the calm after the storm. But then came the letter. Not in a fancy envelope. No postage stamp. Just slipped under my door one foggy Tuesday morning. No return address. No greeting. Just one line. You think Brett was the only one? I stared at the paper, confused. First I thought it was a prank. But I had that feeling again. That tightening in my chest I'd felt when Brett first forged my name. That prickling on the back of my neck that told me something wasn't right. I showed Rachel. She frowned. Maybe it's one of Brett's friends trying to rattle you. But then I got a second letter the following week. This one had a name, Tom Grady. I hadn't heard that name in 40 years. Tom had been George's best friend back in the day. Charming, smart, always helping with house repairs. But after George died, he disappeared from my life. According to the letter, Tom had recently passed. And in his will, he left behind a confession. He had secretly co-signed for a second mortgage on our home years ago, using George's name after his death, to help cover some old gambling debt, which meant, if the paperwork still existed, there might be someone else, a stranger, with a partial financial claim on my house. I couldn't breathe. The house I had just saved. The house I had nearly lost. The house I had turned into a sanctuary for abused women. Thought it was safe. Thought I was safe. Rachel was furious. We need to get ahead of this, before anyone tries to use this against you. So I called Clara. We went digging. And that's when we found the third letter, filed in county records from 1988. A lien on the property. It was never cleared. Never resolved. Just buried under years of new paperwork and digital files. And technically, still existed. That meant legally, someone could come after it. Someone already had. A man named Calvin Grady, Tom's son. And unlike his father, Calvin didn't want friendship or forgiveness. He wanted the money. $42,000. Adjusted for interest. He had already filed a motion to seize the property to satisfy the estate's debt. I laughed at first. He can't do that. Can he? Clara looked grim. Technically, if we can't prove fraud or get it nullified, it's a lien he can enforce. I was tired. So tired. I had already fought a manipulative son-in-law. Fought to win my daughter back. Fought to reclaim my dignity. And now, I had to fight a dead man's lie. Rachel stepped up. We're not letting him take your home. Not again. We didn't sleep for days. We scoured old files, contacted George's old law firm, found faded photocopies of paperwork with Tom's signature, but nothing that cleared the lien. It wasn't until we dug through George's old tool chest in the garage that we found it. A yellowed envelope tucked beneath a panel, taped shut with brittle duct tape. Inside, receipt, signed affidavit, and a notarized letter from 1992. Tom had paid the debt, but never filed the release. He thought the paperwork was enough. That a notarized statement was as good as gold. It wasn't filed. It wasn't recorded. But it was dated, signed, and real. We submitted it to the judge. Waited. And waited. Rachel held my hand every day, whispering prayers over my shoulder like I used to when she had the flu as a child. And then, call came. The judge ruled in our favor. The lien was nullified. Calvin's claim was dismissed with prejudice. It was over. Again. But this time, something in me cracked. Not from fear. From exhaustion. That night I sat on my porch and cried. Not because I lost, but because I was tired of having to fight so hard to keep what was already mine. Rachel brought me tea. You okay? He nodded. I'm just so tired of being the one who has to always stand up. She knelt beside me. Then don't stand up alone anymore. And she meant it. She started co-directing the Meadow Fund with me. Took over phone calls. Managed emails. Even started mentoring young women trying to leave abusive marriages. She had finally stepped into her own strength. And I finally sat back. Smile. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone else carry the torch. But just as I started to believe life would stay steady, the phone rang again. It was a reporter. Big one. She said, Joanne Hill, we'd love to feature your story on national television. But before we do, we need to ask about one more thing. Froze. What thing? He paused. Then said the last name I ever expected to hear again. Brett. Brett. I repeated, barely whispering into the phone. Yes, ma'am, the reporter said. We've just been given access to a pre-recorded interview Brett Hill conducted with a podcast. In it, he claims he was set up, that you fabricated documents to ruin him, that your daughter was brainwashed. My mouth went dry. She continued. He's pitching himself as the victim, and now some outlets are picking it up. We wanted to give you a chance to respond before we run the story. I thanked her politely, hung up, and just sat there. My heart wasn't pounding like before. It wasn't even fear. It was fury. Cold. Focused. Silent. This man was in prison. For fraud. For trespassing. For forging my name. For trying to steal the only home I had. And now he was trying to rewrite history. Rachel burst through the screen door seconds later, phone in hand. Mom, I just saw the teaser clip. He's spinning this as some kind of revenge story. Says he was trying to protect the family from your mental decline. Understood. No, I said, not again. He doesn't get to do this again. We scheduled an interview. Not for revenge. For the record. 2 days later, I sat in a small studio with powder on my cheeks and a microphone clipped to my blouse. The interviewer, a kind woman named Michelle, smiled and said, Whenever you're ready, Mrs. Hill. I looked into the camera. My name is Joanne Hill. I'm 86 years old. And I am not a liar. Then I told it all. I told the story of the text that started it. The cancelled vacation. The forged deed. The court battle. The fraudulent lien. The women we helped. The nights I cried alone in silence, thinking maybe I really was too much. Too old. Too forgotten. And then I said, I am not a victim. I am not a villain. I am not perfect. But I am not invisible. The clip went viral. Within hours, the hashtag stand with Joanne was trending. Women began sharing their stories. Of sons stealing pensions. Of in-laws rewriting wills. Of daughters-in-law leaving them out of birthdays after decades of raising grandkids. And the stories kept coming. We had to hire volunteers to help sort through emails. One message struck me the hardest. Your voice gave me permission to leave. I'm 72. I thought I had to stay quiet. Thank you for proving we don't have to. And then, one rainy afternoon, I got a letter from prison. From Brett. I almost threw it out. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page. You won. I don't even know who I am anymore. Maybe I never did. I hope the girls don't remember me. I hope they remember you. There was no signature. Just a smeared fingerprint in the corner. I showed it to Rachel. She read it quietly, then shook her head. He's trying to guilt you. I know, I said. But maybe for the first time it's not a performance. We never wrote back. We didn't need to. Some ghosts are better left silent. Instead we moved forward. The Meadow Fund received a grant, $100,000, from a national foundation supporting elderly justice. We expanded to 3 states. Started a podcast hosted by Rachel. Emma wrote her college entrance essay about 3 generations of women who refused to be quiet. She got in with a scholarship. And on my 87th birthday, I sat under the same porch George built, with Sadie on my lap, and told her this. One day you're going to have to stand up for something. Someone might lie about you. Someone might try to take from you. Someone might say your story doesn't matter. She looked up at me, eyes wide. What do I do? You do what I did. Fight. Smiled. No, baby. Speak. Because the ones who speak, they shape the world. And then I looked out past the porch swing, past the tulips, past the old oak tree that had survived every storm. And I whispered to myself, I am still here. The world didn't change overnight. But mine did. Not because Brett was gone. Not because we went viral. Not even because the court gave me justice. My world changed because I remembered who I was. Not just a mother. Not just a grandmother. Not just a retired nurse. I was Joanne Hill. A woman who gave her whole life to her family. And almost lost herself in the process. But I didn't stay lost. Chose to fight. To speak. To rise. And because of that, I not only got my home back. Got my voice back. People began to stop me in grocery stores. Old friends called again. Even the church, which once pushed me aside, asked me to speak on Sunday morning. But the greatest gift, it wasn't fame, or justice, or even peace. It was watching my daughter, the same daughter who once texted me to stay home, stand on a stage and introduce me as her hero. It was Sadie, drawing me as Super Granny, for her second-grade art project. It was Emma calling every Sunday from college just to say, Hi Grandma, I miss you. And on quiet evenings, when the porch swing creaked just like it used to when George was alive, I'd close my eyes and smile. 'Cause now, my story wasn't one of betrayal anymore. It was one of becoming, of breaking, of rebuilding, of being heard. If you're listening right now, and you feel like no one sees you anymore, if your kindness is being mistaken for weakness, if you've been told you're too old, too soft, too slow, or too much, let me tell you something. You are exactly enough. Your story is not over. And sometimes the strongest thing you can ever say is, no, not anymore. So to anyone who ever doubted me, to those who tried to take my home, my name, my family, or my peace, let this be the final word. I am still here. I am still standing. And I am never, ever going silent again.